We'll end with question and answers. Anybody have any comments, questions, answers? Okay. Dean, could you pass these out? If everybody's here, I have a little handout that's not on the presentation. See, I told you it wasn't all the scriptures in the Greater Exodus. So there's two things here. Okay. And everybody gets one. To take home with you. Yes. Yes, Michael.
For everybody, I guess, in the book of Revelations, John writes that those who overcome will rule with a rod of iron. And so, who does he talk to? I mean, who is he referring to when he says we're going to rule over them?
Yeah, probably the third that isn't killed. Remember, the third of the earth is killed, the non-believers. A third of the earth is killed by the sword, and a third of the earth is killed by the plague, the famine or whatever, and stuff, or whatever it is. And a third will still remain, and it's talking about those that live in the natural. And Zechariah actually talks about chapter 14 of Zechariah. 14 talks about it and says, those remaining from all those who came to fight against Yahweh, those remaining, those living in the natural, they'll still be survivors then. See, so that would be who you're ruling over in addition to the others. The insight.
Take the mark. They didn't pledge allegiance to Yahweh, but they also didn't take the mark. I mean, if you took the mark, that's a one way.
Okay, we didn't get to the Torah portion today. But we don't ever get through all the Torah portion anyway. But anyway, today, anybody else have any comments or questions about the Greater Exodus? Yes, part 5. Yes.
Last week, going back to the Greek versus Hebrew, cyclical versus linear. I know I think you brought that up last week, but brother, we know clearly from what we read in the Bible that prophecy is cyclical.
Yeah.
So we know that is the Hebrew thought pattern. But our brother Yehuda will deceive us in that because in early Talmudic writings, they say it's cyclical as well. But in later Talmudic writings from Akiva onward, they start saying, no.
See if everybody else has the new people.
They say, no, that prophecy's been fulfilled, check it off your list. And that's how they turn people away from Yeshua, because they'll say, that prophecy doesn't apply to Yeshua, that was fulfilled by Zechariah.
Checked it off the list, exactly. Very excellent example. Excellent example.
I got a question.
Yes.
I got a comment in regards to that, because there are some rabbinic priests, for lack of a better term, who are acknowledging that maybe they looked at, they're acknowledging a Greek Jesus as opposed to a Messianic Jesus, Jewish Jesus, as opposed to a Greek Jesus.
Yeah.
And they approached a guy named Zeb Porat. I know I mentioned him from Messiah Israel Ministries, and they've literally gone and talked to this guy, asking him where in Torah, they mention Messiah. He tells them where that's happening. So I think the veil, and he happened to write this as well in his email, that the veil is being lifted from when he read Moses. So it's pretty cool stuff. So yeah, there's some that perhaps are going by the way of the Talmud, like you were just saying, but there's others who are going back and acknowledging the Jewish Jesus, the Messiah, the Mashiach. I don't know, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I was very happy to see that email, that they were approaching them. You know how they dress, the rabbinic priests in black, the Orthodox, typical dress. You can tell who they are. You can spot them on the way. And it's just encouraging to see that. Just a comment.
Okay, Gilda, you were said something a while ago. Okay.
I just noticed that in the Hebrew movement, that God is beginning to shift, and He's pulling people out of the church. And I've met so many people who are saying, "Oh, I'm doing Passover now, but my church is not doing it," and it's just amazing how I'm beginning to see just little people here and there are beginning to say, "You know what? We need to be keeping the Sabbath," but they don't know how to, or and I always talk to them, but it's just amazing the change, the shift that God is doing. He's trying to bring us back. Like I said, secular, He's bringing us back. I was thinking earlier, Martin Luther, he had only a little portion, and he changed that shift from Catholicism, changed And he began to shift and shift and shift, and now look, he's bringing us back to the Lord. Because I think they can only have so much. He only allowed so much to Martin Luther. And he came out, but he still came out with all his idols. He still came out with all those things, and now God's just bringing it back to the Lord, the obedience, and leaving idolatry behind. Because he wants us back to the way. That's why every time I read Jeremiah, I cry. So now I understand why he cried all the time.
Yes. Yeah, and on that point, I just want to reiterate, people are coming awakening all the time. An interesting statistic from the supporters of HRN, they get a letter every month, HebraicRootsNetwork.com, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, streaming internet television station, and it's on the internet. And they said in that they have an average for 2015 of about 50,000 views of HRN viewers a month on HRN, Hebraic Roots Network. And you just go on that website and click on live and watch live, and you can see it. And there's an on-demand section too as well. But my point is this: the little statistic said, in addition to that, 50,000 viewers a month. But they said over 90%. I don't know how they can tell this, but they can tell on computers, you know. Over 90% of those 50,000 are first-time viewers. The first time they've come to the HRN website. Over 90% of the 50,000. Whatever that number is. I didn't do the math and stuff, but anyway, I thought that was interesting. So it goes along with more and more people awakening to the Hebraic roots of the faith, and that's worldwide. I forget how many 120 countries we're in right now or something. So yes.
Do people get saved in Hebraic? I mean, you know, like in the Christian church, you go in, you get saved, you fall up to the altar, you give your life over. Do you see that here?
I see people following Torah.
And they're just they're awakening to the scriptures.
I answer that question with this question. When the children of Israel were in Egypt, when were they saved? When they came out of Egypt? When they put the blood on the doorposts, were they saved then? Were they, maybe they were saved when they got away from Pharaoh, out from under Pharaoh, and got out into the desert. Or were they saved whenever they were at the Nuebe beach, and the Pharaoh's army was behind them in the canyon, and the pillar of cloud, which had been leading them, turned into a pillar of fire and moved behind them and blocked the way of the canyon so that the Pharaoh's army could not attack them and kill them until they had time for Yahweh to split the Red Sea, and they crossed that way. Or when they crossed the Red Sea and got on the other side, were they saved then? Or when they're at Mount Sinai and they're wed to Yahweh effectively and said the 10 words and all that I've said, and we've heard all that you've said and we'll do, you know, and stuff, and we'll obey them. Were they saved then? Or were they saved when they crossed the Jordan River and went into the Promised Land? Were they saved then? And so I ask you all those questions and so on for just an example. And so I'm going to quote Shaul, Paul, from the New Testament, Bri Hadashah. He said, we who are being saved. And in Greek, I didn't get this one thing out of the Greek when I studied one semester in Greek in college, and that is, there's this form, this tense. It's like past tense, present tense, future tense, but there's one tense that means it's a present state, but yet it's a state that's present and continuing. So it's we who are being saved, and I'm sure that without even looking in the Greek, that word "we who are being saved" is that tense of that form of the Greek word. Yes, Darlene.
And he said all those things are called sanctification, not salvation.
How about this question? I'll get you yours in a second, Albert. When was this question? It was when was Abraham saved? Okay, and I could go lots of questions about that. But I believe it's when in salvation in the Old Testament, when Yahweh credited him as righteousness, his faith. And that was like 25 years before he was circumcised. So it isn't circumcision that gets you saved. It isn't doing all the works and the following instructions that get you saved. But that this salvation is by faith, and not from works, But yet, once we have the salvation, once that we are being saved, then because of our love for what He did for us, we want to serve Him and do the works and do the things and follow His instructions in the Torah and live our lives and walk not lie and not cheat and not do this and not do that and to do these things that He says, observe the feasts and fellowship and love one another and give and so on and so forth. So, yes, Alberto.
No, I was going to say that it's a continual, I look at it as a continual process. You continue to get refined, you continue to do all these things. But the main thing is you have to be the light. What He shows you, the talents, the parable of talent. What do you do with what He gives you? Are you shining that light that He's giving you? Or are you covering the light? Are you being embarrassed by what things that you do? Or are you being the light and shining and saying, look, I don't care. This is what God says, and this is what I'm doing. And so it's something that, it's a process. It's a process. I believe it's a process of problems. Everyone's different stages, different things, but it's still a continuum. It's a continuum thing, and we will continue to be refined. And there's always going to be something there to try to make you go to the left or to the right. But we know that we need to stay on that path and continue to shine that light for the people. Be kind of to each one.
Good. Yes, Cannon.
Back to what your sister said about physical salvation versus spiritual salvation. In the Tanakh, most references to Yeshua, right, to salvation, are from physical danger. There's only 2 or 3 occurrences where it is a spiritual salvation. So most of the body of the usage of that word has to deal with the physical salvation of children of Israel being physically rescued. So, I would present that to the Christian pastor that, well, look how this word is used. Usually it is salvation. This is what He is telling us is salvation. He will rescue us from danger. He will rescue us from physical harm. Right? It's not just some spiritual feel-good thing. Sometimes He does have to rescue us from ourselves, right? To rescue us from the darkness inside. But a lot of the times He has to rescue us from outward dangers that we may face.
And that's how
Yes, Michael.
you're producing good fruit, because you're living by example and you're also giving your testimony to give other people hope.
Yeah.
That's when you know that you're producing good fruit.
Yeah. And everybody will be glad to know, I just checked the recording and it's still running. So, hallelujah, I say, because we had to redo part 3 because it didn't get recorded except the first 27 seconds. So, we're still running. And anybody else have any comments or questions? I'm going to put that testimony in there. That's my testimony for it now. We got the recording in. That's great. So, we got this go. Anybody else? If not, we're going to all stand.